Hey there, dear YouTube audience, and welcome to a new episode of GIANTainment Sapphic Book Reviews. Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to the fourth episode of GIANTainment Sapphic Book Reviews 2026 edition. I'm, of course, as per usual, nothing has been changed, nothing will change about that. It's your boy, The Love Giant. My absolute favorite books obviously are Sapphic books. If you want to know more about that, why and when or something like that, then obviously there is an episode for that. Watch one of the prior episodes, actually the first one, or watch my ranking for the books that I've read in 2025, where I go into a little bit more detail. So with that being out of the way, we can jump right into the fourth book that I actually concluded this year. Again, you can check out the previous episodes to see which books I have been reading this year. It's not necessarily books that are that have been published this year or last year, but it's pretty much everything that I just started reading last year in May. Started that again, discovered my undying love for Sapphic books. So yeah, I have to go through a good catalog of like all-time greats, maybe some lost jewels and stuff like that, and also obviously some recently published one if it's by Jess Forrester. However, this book is actually a book that was released, let me check that real quick if I can find it, 26th of March 2024, and is by a renowned lesbian author, I think, at least. I don't know. I've read some stuff about the author, but I'm not entirely sure, so I'm gonna take a step back with that. But from what I've seen, actually, in the beginning, she wrote like your typical cishet bullshit ass romance bullshit, and now she found a new niche and actually just downright publishes LGBTQ/lesbian Sapphic books. So with that, that's actually pretty goddamn good. And talking about, obviously, Rachel Lacey, and do I want to go into the text first is the question. Actually, no. Here's the thing. I've read a book by Rachel Lacey last year in the ranking for my favorite books of 2025. It was actually, I've read 14 books last year, and this was, like, her book was in the top 10. Not quite in the top 5. It was actually ranked my 6th favorite book in 2025, and by Rachel Lacey, and it was Learning Curves, which was also released last year. I think I mentioned it every single time. I got a little bit like duped by the cover because autumn is my favorite season, and this looked like, from the cover, it just looked like, autumn would be like a main focal point, and it kind of is. Because that's when like the whole romance arc basically unfolds and when the entire thing takes place, but it also goes into winter and a little bit of spring in the end, so it's not quite like autumn centered. There are like some stuff where she describes the landscape a little bit, but not enough, for it to be like an autumn book. But one thing that Rachel Lacey does really, really, really goddamn well is describe like the spice scenes, that like the way she describes them basically. And if I mention Learning Curves and just spice, then the first thing that comes to mind is the pottery scene. And in Cover Story, there is a similar one. Learning Curves obviously is like her most recent work, and Cover Story is like the one that came before this. She wrote a couple of more, but this one actually looked interesting, and also just from the blurb, it sounded really interesting. And speaking of the blurb, why don't we just go right into that? Natalie Keane is one of Hollywood's top leading ladies, but she's paid a steep price for her fame. After she was stalked 8 years ago, the ensuing media frenzy almost broke her. So when a new threat arises, Natalie agrees to extra security, but she wants to keep it under wraps. The last thing she needs is another tabloid spectacle, especially during awards season. Taylor Vaughn has made a career as a bodyguard to the stars, but an injury has kept her sidelined for the past 3 months, jeopardizing her future in the job she loves. When an opportunity arises to work for Natalie Keane, Taylor jumps at the chance, even before knowing the details of her assignment. Natalie knows this could work. Taylor, the bodyguard, masquerading as her girlfriend. The perfect cover story. There it is. But as circumstances push the two women closer, the lines between fantasy and reality begin to blur. Now here's the thing, party people. Obviously, I'm still going like through all of the different kind of like after 14 books, there are still new stuff that I haven't read yet, you know, archetype wise. And I'm going through the archetypes, like, you know, friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, the close proximity, I guess you could call it, you know, like the historical fiction, all of that stuff. And this is also the first book that I actually read from the fake dating trope. I've read like some people like it, some people don't like it. It's, you know, it depends on how it's basically portrayed. But in this specific one, was actually goddamn good. And before we get into any like more details, I wanna stress something real quick here. And this is also for the people that don't just listen to it, but actually just look also at the video. The main protagonists, obviously it's Natalie Keene and then also Taylor Vaughn, and you know, the chapters basically like jump in between, like you read a chapter from Taylor, then there might be two from Natalie, and then it goes back to Taylor, like stuff like that. But Taylor Vaughn, especially the way she's described, usually she's like your typical butch character. She's a fucking bodyguard for fuck's sake, obviously. So more of a butch character, short hair, obviously brown hair. She dyes them blonde. So, you know, if like people actually noticed her before as a bodyguard, she wants to be less recognizable as a bodyguard, obviously, for the whole deal. And if you look at the screen, Taylor is fucking King from King of Fighters / Art of Fighting / SNK. You can't tell me otherwise. The way she is described, especially when she dyes her hair blonde, is fucking King from King of Fighters, and you can't tell me otherwise. For the entire book, every time Taylor is mentioned, every time Taylor is around Natalie, which is for almost the entire book for obvious reasons, this is how she is described, like to a T. Like I don't think Rachel Lacey is like a gamer. That would be fucking amazing, actually, especially like, you know, if you go in depth like this and you don't go for a Street Fighter reference, but you go for an SNK Art of Fighting King of Fighter reference, then goddamn girl, you got it. But I kind of doubt it. But obviously, like, you know, short hair, knows martial arts, isn't really like muscular, but obviously is sturdy. She's a bodyguard. It's fucking King. Absolutely it is, man. Can't tell me otherwise. Anyways, this is, as I mentioned, like the whole fake dating trope that this book basically revolves around. And I mentioned, and I'm gonna get that out of the way real quick, there's not as much spice as you would usually think. But I guess that's just like a trope or like a normal thing for Rachel Lacey, because Rachel Lacey books are not really spice ridden. It's mostly literally about the connection between the characters, which obviously your boy doesn't mind. I mean, I fucking read Mistakes Were Made. Yeah, that too, but that's spice ridden, obviously. What was the last one from my favorite author, Chess Forrester? Breaking from Frame, obviously, which has like one spice scene, and it's like just like a slow burn. Basically, it's a build up for obvious reasons there. Like it made sense in the historical fiction kind of setting that the book had. And yeah, like also for learning curves, I think there were like 2 spice scenes in the entire book. But the thing is, the way it is written, again, you mention learning curves by Rachel Lacey, and you mention spice, and then your mind immediately goes to the pottery scene, because goddamn, that was fucking amazing. And in cover story, it's not like really the spice, but it's like the lead up to the spice, like the quote-unquote foreplay, if you will, that Rachel Lacey just describes fucking perfectly. I've read a lot about Rachel Lacey books when I was going through cover story to see like what her other works are, and there are some books that I actually also want to check out by Rachel Lacey. Especially after reading like 2, and cover story was also really good compared to like learning curves, which is learning curves a little bit better. But many people also actually stress that they don't like the way she actually describes the spice scenes, because they think more of like the word she's using. People mention like they get more of a vision of plumbing. which was kind of funny. I don't know under which book that was, but it was on Goodreads. I don't think it was for a cover story. I think it was for another Rachel Lacey book. But apparently she got better over the course of the years, because I haven't read this about cover story, and haven't read that about like learning curves. So I guess her wording got better. Maybe she took that to heart, and you know, got a little bit more varied with that. But also, you know, the thing is, like, as I mentioned, for cover story and also learning curves, it's not like the main, like, obviously it leads to spice in the end. That's the payoff. But it's mostly like the emotional bonding that you get throughout the book. And the thing that I love about cover story is that, especially at the beginning, because Taylor obviously has to masquerade as a bodyguard for Natalie. Natalie actually realized Taylor, like she saw her before as a bodyguard for another fellow actor. And yeah, she also thought, like, damn, she's hot. Taylor is on, like, internet forums. They mention that all the lesbian women basically just fucking drool at her, because, like, apps for days and stuff like that, which was cool to read also. Like, they're absolutely jealous, obviously, because Taylor is a catch. But the thing is that because Natalie is an actress and, you know, she thinks she's hot, obviously she gets, like, a little bit more open, because Taylor also basically double works, if you will, as a therapist as well. Like, you know, obviously the story that they have is that Taylor was like Natalie's personal what was it, like fitness instructor or something like that. So it makes sense when they, you know, go jogging together or just spar and stuff like that. But the thing is, like, Natalie is an actress, so there's, at the beginning, when there's like when she just thinks she's hot, but there's not like much emotional thing going on, that builds obviously throughout the book as they get closer together. She obviously is an actress, and she's a really good actress, so Taylor doesn't really know whenever Natalie is actually for real or not. But we get to know later down the line when Taylor actually knows the person, Natalie, when, like, she notices, like, basically in her eyes when she has, like, this emotional barrier that she doesn't want to break down. And then when she basically pulls the curtain down, that's when Taylor realizes basically that she's actually talking to the real person, and that Natalie is not playing an act. Which at the beginning is a little bit hard for her to actually decipher if she's actually playing or not. And it also comes down later in the story, after the first spy scene, where Natalie, for a specific reason, not gonna go too much into detail, goes a little bit more distant. Taylor obviously has the problem that she has like this back injury that's slowly making her impossible to do the job that she loves, as it also said in the blurb at the beginning. That also plays a major role, and she basically collapses because like one of a fucking obsessed fan basically bumps into her. So she can't protect her. She basically falls to the ground, lays flat on the ground, can't move, and then even though Natalie was like distant and cold at the beginning of the day, for a specific reason that comes up, obviously, she obviously plays like the role, quote unquote, or Taylor thinks that Natalie plays like the role of the distraught and, you know, girlfriend that is like scared for Taylor's well-being. And the thing though, however, is that what the book does really good in that sense is that it's never unresolved. Like, they always have like communication going on, which is absolutely mandatory, obviously. And we get more backstory, obviously, for Natalie. We get more backstory for Taylor as well. Her family is fucking peak. I love Taylor's father. Like, great guy. Absolutely great guy. Absolute trooper. Her mother, a little bit obnoxious, I would say, but, you know, still lovable, obviously. Great characters all around. Natalie is also, like, her fucking bubble is also really fucking great. They have, like, you know, as they grow closer, like, the people kind of get that. Like her, what was it, like hairdresser or something like that? Or the guy that basically does her outfit and stuff like that. He notices that, and he's also the one that actually tells Taylor to basically, you know, go for Natalie, basically, because they see the growing attraction between the two of them. But then obviously you have the problem that Taylor is, like, you know, the bodyguard, but that obviously gets like broken down further and further down the line. Her parents obviously also support her. Natalie also actually is in the book, they mentioned it right at the beginning. She outed herself as a lesbian, so it makes sense that the bodyguard has to be a female. That's one of the first things actually that comes up as well. The stalker thing is actually really, really good. Like the way it's basically handled, because when there is like, she obviously has like this new fucking security system going on, and there's this one point, and I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but it introduces a major character too, where Taylor obviously has like the entire like security system on her phone, and there has been, they mentioned that throughout the chapter, like there has been like vision detected throughout the entire day sporadically, but nothing ever shows up on the camera. And then there's this one point where it triggers like multiple times, and the way it's described is fucking creepy. Every time something like this happens, there's also a point where they're on a set to shoot a movie, and there's like Taylor looks at her phone and takes Natalie, is like, okay, come with me real quick. And then you have like through the intercom, they say like, I think it was like lasagna is like free today or something. And then I was like, okay, that's kind of funny because, you know, they just want to go to the buffet. But then that is actually code for someone is on the set that is not supposed to be on the set. And these like little horror elements that are basically strewn in there are pretty light. They underline like also Natalie's mindset basically of, I'm not gonna tell what Becker is actually the stalker, what he did, or if he shows up again or something like that. But I can tell you one thing, there is no trigger warning needed for this. But it basically just goes to show you how you have to, like how much you have to do to actually overcome your fear. That goes hand in hand also with therapy that actually Taylor brings up to Natalie. And just like the way also Taylor obviously, you know, is your the picture perfect fucking butch character. Like, you know, she protects fucking Natalie no matter what. Obviously that's her job as well, but also just because they are like literally physically attracted towards each other, especially also emotionally later down the line. And yeah, just Natalie basically can just open up to Taylor. There's also a reason why she basically builds up that wall whenever she finds someone that, you know, could be a love interest in her life. Same thing for Taylor, obviously. That's a trope also for pretty much every book. Like if there's like a specific reason for them to try to keep it professional and not go into the romance arc right away, then there's a specific reason because something happened in the past, and that is also explained throughout the book. We get like a little bit of like tidbits for Natalie's backstory at the beginning, and the more Taylor gets to know her, the more we also get to know Natalie, and vice versa. Same thing for Taylor as well. And Taylor's ability to actually read people is really spot on, but sometimes also a little bit lacking. It's like, you know, it makes sense, you know. It gets, if you think about it at first, you would think like, okay, that's like missing consistency. If sometimes she figures Natalie out and sometimes she doesn't. But with the circumstances that I'm thinking about now, I'm thinking about like multiple things that happen in the book, it actually kind of makes sense. And I'm trying, again, not to spoiler anything. Obviously, this book, however, that's a thing that has to happen every single time. If it doesn't have it, then I'm not going to read it. And I don't think I'm ever going to read a book that doesn't have an HEA and happily ever after, because I goddamn fucking need that. That's a fucking mandatory one. And obviously, this book also features that. There is a thing that also comes up, which is, as I mentioned, like Taylor's health. You know, like the problem with her back that she has. She jumps right into work because she doesn't want to do the office job anymore. So that's what she basically had to do while she was recovering. But she kind of rushes into this assignment again. So basically her health gets worse. As I mentioned, like she gets knocked over by an obnoxious fan, and then just, you know, lies flat on the ground, unable to protect Natalie as well. So also the end of the book is hard, you know, in a good way. However, you would almost think like the thing is, like, it also doesn't have the third act breakup. It doesn't really have that, because there is like constant communication going on. And also, like, towards the end, when you think there's gonna be a breakup arc coming in or something like that. It never really does, because again, we have two grown adults right here that actually are able to communicate with one another. And I think actually that covers pretty much everything. I think this is gonna be a short one, apparently. Overall, I can say, you know, side characters were great. Obviously, the main characters are great. You definitely root for them. Backstories for them are also really good, you know, with their past relationships, you know, it kind of makes sense that they are a little bit distant at the beginning, and you know, with the whole thing of Taylor being a bodyguard and she has to separate job from actually love interest and stuff like that. Like what was like she can't fuck her customers or something like that. Which obviously, you know, their bond obviously gets a little bit closer then. But Natalie basically lets her guard down also for Taylor. You also get, you know, her backstory, so that is really well explained as well. As I mentioned, side characters, they are there. Lovable, definitely. Not too many, however. There's also like a little bit of a side plot going on with, forgot her name already, but one of Natalie's fans slash actress friends. Actually, also we have two, that's also the thing, actually. We have two awards shows in this one. And the second one was a surprise, because it leads up to something specific. And now that I mention it, when people are on that side, they probably will remember my words. You expect something, but they kind of do, like, Rachel Lacey basically gives you something completely different, so... Also didn't expect that, you know. I was like, okay, wait, is that I had to check actually, I think at that point, if it has an happily ever after, because it didn't sound too well, and it was only like 10% left in the book, because, you know, obviously reading that on a Kindle. Actually, yeah, I gave this book 4 out of 5. I don't think I'm gonna read that again, but just again, you know, if this, as I mentioned, you know, I'm gonna mention it again because, you know, I read it last year, obviously. Learning curves, you mentioned spice, pottery scene, and in cover story you can do that too. Cover story, literally the first spice scene is really fucking good. I like the lead up to that, basically, you know. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. You can tell that, however, that Rachel Lacey, that this book came before Learning Curves, because it's, compared to Learning Curves, it's like the wording is a little bit more rough, and it's not like really too descriptive, but obviously it's like the whole, like it basically revolves around like Natalie and her home and sort of like the surrounding area. Tension, however, is actually something that I haven't had in, like, tension in a sense of like really like horror, if you will. Never really had that in the Sapphic books that I've read so far, even though I fucking love horror, obviously. You know, Scream is my favorite movie franchise. Kill me for that. Actually drew on The Grudge and then Scream. However, yeah, as I mentioned, like the whole thing, like you see something, or like there's motion detected throughout the entire day sporadically, and but it never shows up on camera. And then during the night, you know, like the way she describes like the terror in Natalie's face when Taylor is like, okay, I have to go out there and check, and then she also takes her gun with her and stuff like that. That tends, she describes it really fucking well. Like you really feel the dread when you read it. Really fucking well done. And yeah, I think with that's a cover story. Actually, also interesting thing is that this Rachel Lacey sort of builds like a universe with this one, because sort of, quote unquote, like sorta, because Taylor actually shows up in the book Stars Collide, which is another book by Rachel Lacey, that came before even a cover story, obviously. So she was like sort of a side character there. I think I also have that book, but I'm not entirely sure. That was released 2023. So given that cover story was 2024, let me check real quick. Yep. That basically, you know, takes a character from a different book and just plays it, and just, you know, gives that character a little bit more of a backstory. So if you read this first, like I do, and then maybe Stars Collide later on, then, you know, this is like its own universe. And that's actually also, I just checked like a series that she has, with Stars Collide being the first in the book, and then obviously Cover Story being the second one. So maybe we get a little bit more in the future, even though I don't think we had any Sapphic characters in Cover Story, so there's nothing to really expand up on that. But maybe in Stars Collide, but I'm not entirely sure. But I think I have that book in my want to read pile, so that might be also coming up. Not sure if this year, because I have a couple of books that I want to get into, and they're a little bit more on the longer side, I would say. I'm not entirely sure what comes next for me, however. Well, actually, I kind of do, but we'll see about that, because I'm reading my second Robin Alexander book after Scaredy Cat, so that is going to be next on the chopping block for GIANTainment Sapphic book reviews, and this is going to be interesting. However, that was it for Cover Story by Rachel Lacey. As I mentioned, fake dating is the main trope of this one. Again, good characters, good backstory, tense situations. Love Taylor's character, absolutely. Natalie is like a little bit more mundane, if you will, but, with her emotional stuff and things like that, obviously, it's still a little bit basic, I feel. And yeah, Taylor, like Butch characters in general, just, fucking love them. Is it a must read? Wouldn't say so, but you would miss something if you didn't read it, because I definitely enjoyed it. Again, learning curves was better though, I think. But yeah, a little bit tense, and overall just a great couple to root for. So yeah, do yourself a favor, grab yourself a copy. If not, then definitely take Breaking from Frame, because that is going to be my favorite book this year already. I don't think anything is going to top that. Jess Forrester for the win. With that being said, hope you enjoyed this episode, the fourth one, my fourth book this year for GIANTainment Sapphic Book Reviews 2026. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I hope to see you, feel you next time. And next time we have, I'm just gonna say, Pitifully Ugly by Robin Alexander. So whenever I'm done with that, there's gonna be an episode for it. So yeah, I hope you stick around, and I hope to see you all in the next one.